Some video games are definitely more violent and explicit than others. Since the introduction of action video games, there has been tons and tons of controversy over whether or not video games actually led to people getting violent in real life. Well, today we're going to be focusing on the 10 instances where that actually did happen. Now, just to be clear, this is not intended to support the stance that video games cause real violence. In fact, I believe the complete opposite. This is simply a discussion of the times that it did indeed happen. So here you go, guys, the top 10 video games that led to people getting violent in real life. At the number 10 spot is Mortal Kombat. In December of 2007, even more controversy was connected to the long-running and graphic fighting game franchise, Mortal Kombat. A 7-year-old girl was beaten to death by a 17-year-old boy named Lamar Roberts and his girlfriend, as they were reportedly imitating Mortal Kombat, a game that they were both avid players of. After the trial, Heather was sentenced to 18 years in prison and Lamar was sentenced to 36 years. At the number 9 spot is PlayStation. While this entry isn't about a specific game, it's still shocking. In November of 2010, a 16-year-old boy named Kendall Anderson, an avid video game player and PlayStation fan, had gotten in trouble with his mother, who took his console from him as punishment. In response to this punishment, Kendall bludgeoned his mother to death with a claw hammer in her sleep, and then tried to cremate her body by putting it in the oven. When this didn't work, he hid the body and wasn't found for 2 days, when Kendall was arrested and found guilty of murder. At our number 8 spot is Goldeneye, one of my favorite games of all time. Next up, we have Goldeneye 007, released in 1997 for the Nintendo 64. This FPS was hugely popular and was one of the first successful realistic shooters ever released to the mainstream audience. Well, given its popularity, plenty of parents got mad at it, especially in March of 1998 when two kids, a 13-year-old boy named Mitchell Johnson and an 11-year-old boy named Andrew Golden, went to their school and killed 4 students and their teacher at their middle school. No connection was drawn to Goldeneye at the time, but after the Columbine massacre, the case was revisited and it was revealed that the 2 kids were avid Goldeneye players, leading to outrage among parents. At the number 7 spot is Grand Theft Auto 4. The widely popular open-world crime simulator has had controversy following it ever since its inception, and you're going to hear about it a lot on this list. In June of 2008, a group of teenagers went out for a night on the town when they decided to go on a horrific crime spree. After robbing a man and smashing out his teeth, they stole a woman's BMW. The teenagers were all avid GTA 4 players and were reportedly inspired by the video game to commit all of their horrible actions that night. At the number 6 spot is EverQuest. In 2001, a mother was outraged at the developers of the fantasy MMO EverQuest. The woman, Mrs. Woolley, blamed the game for driving her son, Sean, to suicide, stating, "I think the way this game is written is that when you're first playing it, it is fun and you make great accomplishments. And then the further you get into it, the higher level you get, the longer you have to stay on it to move forward. And then it just isn't fun anymore. But by then you're addicted and you just can't leave it." This definitely pissed off a lot of people, as Mrs. Woolley was ignoring the seriousness of mental illness and the hardships that her son had to endure, and that eventually drove him to suicide, and was rather just blaming the game for her son's death. At the number 5 spot is Scarface, The World Is Yours. Do you ever play video games with your friends and argue over whose turn it is to play? Well, unfortunately, this argument went way too far this time. In June of 2007, while playing Scarface, The World Is Yours, the 22-year-old Alejandro Garcia shot his cousin after having the whose turn it is to play argument and killing him instantly. At his trial, Garcia was sentenced to 15 to 30 years in prison for murder. At the number 4 spot is Halo 3. One of the biggest Xbox games was Halo 3, released in 2007. After the game came out, a 16-year-old boy named Daniel Petrick snuck out of his house to buy the game behind his parents' back, as they didn't want him to play it. After finding out that he not only bought the game, but was spending over 18 hours a day to play it, Daniel's father took the game from him and closed it in a lockbox in his closet. Upon getting his father's keys and sneaking into the lockbox to get Halo 3 back, Daniel also found a 9mm handgun that was sitting next to it in the safe. He took the game, he took the gun, and then he went to kill his parents, shooting both of them in the head, killing his mother and wounding his father. At his case, Daniel was sentenced to 23 years in prison. His attorney tried to claim that Daniel was simply addicted to the game and didn't think that his parents would be dead forever if he shot them. But the judge threw this statement out, as Daniel definitely knew what he was doing and understood the concept of death. At our number 3 spot is Grand Theft Auto Vice City. One of the most popular and most successful entries in the Grand Theft Auto franchise is Vice City, released in late 2002. In June of 2003, an 18-year-old named Devin Moore was arrested for possession of a stolen vehicle. However, after being taken into custody, Moore stole the gun of one of the policemen and used it to kill the policeman, his partner, and a dispatcher. At his trial, Moore claimed that he was inspired by Grand Theft Auto Vice City to steal the cop's gun and kill him with it. In August of 2005, Moore was sentenced to death by lethal injection. At our number 2 spot is Grand Theft Auto 3. In February of 2003, a 16-year-old boy named Dustin Lynch was arrested for murder. During his testimony, Dustin pleaded insanity, claiming that Grand Theft Auto 3 had driven him to kill people. The case was actually very strange, as Dustin's attorney, Jack Thompson, is an avid video game hater who frequently tried to link video game violence to crime, and was found assisting the parents of the victim and tried to get the victim's father to pass a threatening note to the judge. Dustin Lynch later dropped his insanity claim and was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. And last but not least, at our number 1 spot is Mortal Kombat 3. You knew there was going to be a Mortal Kombat game at the number 1 spot on this list. Released in 1995, Mortal Kombat 3 was a huge success as millions of players put hours and hours into it both at the arcade and at home, as it was one of the first Mortal Kombat games to have a solid, successful console release. In 1997, a young boy named Yanti stabbed his 13-year-old friend Noah Wilson to death with a kitchen knife. According to Noah's mother, the two were avid Mortal Kombat 3 players, and that the fighting game had driven Yanti insane, as he believed he was Cyrix and was replicating his fatality on Noah. However, when the mother asked what Cyrix's fatality was, she gave a completely wrong answer, leading to her case against Midway Games to be thrown out as baseless, as she was obviously scapegoating the game. However, this instance will go down in gaming history as the biggest controversy surrounding the Mortal Kombat series. Although I do have to say this, why was your 13-year-old son an avid Mortal Kombat player? The game was rated M for mature. Come on, people. And that pretty much wraps it up with this list, guys. Let us know what you thought of it in the comment section below. And also, guys, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. And if you have not already turned your post notifications on, it's pretty easy. All you got to do is click that bell, check that box, and you'll have every single Trending 10 video at your fingertips as soon as they go live. Thanks again for watching this video, guys. This has been Nemo from Trending 10, and I will talk to you guys on the next Top 10.